Hello, Jane.
Hi,
Thank you.
Christine.
Hi. Thank you so much for agreeing to have a conversation with me today about the Gentle Scar program. So, if you'd just like to introduce yourself, let us know where you're located, your business name, and who it is you like to serve.
Okay, my name is Jane Yates, and my business is Greenhill Emmett Technique. I'm located in Far North Queensland, so I work both in Gordonvale and also in Cairns. And I have a extensive clientele that I have grown over the last 20 years, mainly in Emmett Technique and Bowen therapy. And I've found that I'm constantly looking for ways that I can be able to assist clients when they come in. And when I saw that there was a course that I could look at specifically to do with scars, because that's actually an area that I've started to do a lot of learning in regards to scar therapy. I had a great interest in it. And when I saw that your course was available, I was so keen to do it. And I know that I've finished the course and I'm already putting everything that I learned in your course into practice, and helping clients already. So it's been amazing. Thank you.
That's fantastic. And it's like music to my ears, Jane.
Yeah, I like being able to combine different therapies to get the most for my clients. So I'm not a purist. I believe that every modality has really good things to bring to helping individuals. And in my experience, it's been with Bowen therapy and Emmett technique. And it was like there was just, I suppose, just something missing that I could assist when I had clients come in who were post-operative, who may have had surgeries quite a long period of time ago, and things were starting to hurt, and not really understanding why. They just put it down to old age. I realize now that it's not it's actually far more complex, and that if the body is in a constant inflammatory state, it's going to keep laying down scar tissue. And so when I started your course and you were explaining, I suppose, the physiological aspect of what the scar therapy does, it was like, this is perfect for those people. Yes. It's been a really eye-opening experience as a therapist to watch the change. But the biggest thing I've taken from it is that other people have noticed, and not just the individual who's having the massage, but other people have noticed the benefit of the scar therapy. And that has been very validating for taking on this particular, I suppose, new direction.
Yeah, that's great. So what sort of feedback are you getting from your clients?
Well, I have had clients who they've had orthopedic surgery done. One client in particular who had a plate put in when she broke her humerus. Her physiotherapist and her orthopedic surgeon noticed a change in her scar and her range of motion, and the bruising and the just the manner of how the scar itself was looking, but also the way that the skin around it was behaving. So that was really interesting, because I didn't ask her to tell anyone that she was having these treatments, but she was very happy to share why her scar was looking so fabulous and why she was doing so well with all of her exercises. And yeah, I've had other clients too who have noticed a change in how their body moves after they've had the scar therapy. A couple of clients who've had cesarean sections, and they always put having a bad back down to the fact that they've put on extra weight, they're carrying a baby. And when one client in particular had the treatment, she found that there was so much happening in the pelvic area in terms of loosening up. She was just really amazed, and she said the back pain has been very minimal, so she's able to actually now strengthen, whereas before she couldn't do any of those exercises because it just hurt too much.
Yeah.
So that's been really amazing. Yeah.
Fantastic
And
work.
I've had another client who he'd had a liver and gallbladder operation. And so his scar was extensive from one side of the body, pretty much underneath, like where the diaphragm is, all the way to the other side. And he's a painter, so he paints houses. And his arms being in the air all the time with painting, he would get incredibly sore in the neck. And so I would work on that area. But when he allowed me to work on his scar, we found that he had greater range of motion. And this is an operation he had nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's blown me away, is that I'm not quite sure, do you call them historical scars that you've had for a long time, can, like, the tissue around it can be relaxed and changed to allow movement and softening of that scar area.
Yeah.
So yeah,
amazing that is able to happen. And the most amazing part of that, Jane, is how lightly we can make that happen with such
so gentle. Yeah, the number of times, my clients will say, well, when are you going to start? And it's like, I have started. This is what the pressure is. This is how gentle. And they're like, well, how can that help? And then after, doing a treatment for 20 or 30 minutes, and I'll get them to do some movement, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so different. And that, as a therapist, I'm a mild skeptic when it comes to any modality until I can see it works. And once it works, and I know that I can see it, it's not just a hearsay, then, it's like, okay, I'm all in. This is great.
Congratulations. It's wonderful when we can find something that can help our clients. And it's even more wonderful when it's something that you can blend in with your current skills. And that's what I've heard with what you're saying. It's not just you that's noticing it. It's not just the client, but it's other professionals. So orthopedic surgeons, physiotherapists that are associated with these clients are also saying, hey, what happened? What did you do? And the client says, oh, I went to see Jane. And they were like, yes. What does Jane do? Oh, she does this really light thing.
Yeah. And, it's really interesting because when the clients explain what I do, they're like, well, she does this like soft touching, poking, gently. And it's like, pretty much, that's it. But it's done in a manner that is so receptive to what's happening underneath. That's what amazes me, is that the fascia responds so positively to that touch and that rhythmic movement, which the techniques that you taught us allows us to do.
So fantastic. I love it. Okay. So that's like pretty massive in itself.
It is.
However, with the program, everything that we teach you is online through Zoom or through a video or a document you can read. How did that work out for you, Jane?
I have done quite a lot of online learning. And so, I've sat through the multitude of videos and the information and doing the worksheets and the questions at the end of set webinars. And that's been great. But I have to admit, it was like sitting in a classroom with other people, and that gentle communication that goes on when you're actually with a group of like-minded therapists is very different than just doing it on your own. It was good to be able to do pre-learning, so sitting down and watching the videos, and that for me, is a technique. I like to be able to have that information before I do the hands-on, because I feel like I know a lot more to be able to put it into practice. And so I found that a massive benefit in being able to pace it at a rate that I could work in with my, the clinic that I run, and also everyday life, because sometimes courses do impact on your time at night. And this course, it was never a drain. I enjoyed every single Zoom meeting we had. I looked forward to it. I actually made sure that I penciled out time on my diary, and clients had to fit in around that Monday, because I just found it so useful and beneficial. So, that the program is set out in such a way that it really supports us as therapists, as working therapists. Yes, it would be great to be able to do it in person and some hands-on, but in saying that, I wouldn't have got to meet Barbie, for example, in the USA, and all of the different therapists that were around Australia. We would never have gotten to interact with them without this technology. So I've loved it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's incredible when we have like-minded people come together, and that comes through our sort of application filtering process as well. Not everyone gets in, Jane, which is like we just make the group what it is. So
it was a fabulous group, and the different levels of confidence when people came into the group as well. I think that was amazing. You had certain individuals therapists who had been, they've been massage therapists for a very long period of time, and yet they found this very intimidating. Whereas, there are other people who just jumped in head first, because it was like, this is awesome and excellent. And I have to admit, I at no time felt intimidated or overwhelmed. And I have done lots of different courses in the last 20 years. And so, there are times when you do feel completely overwhelmed by other people's qualifications, but this group of therapists, they were so inclusive, and there was none of that professional snobbery that occurs when you're doing certain courses. There are other, and I hate to say it, but there are other courses that provide scar therapy that are very particular about who they will take on. We will only take people who are registered massage therapists. We will only take people who have been working in the industry for this amount of time. And it negates all of those other modalities that are being used in allied health, like Emmett Technique and bone therapy. And it discards them and makes it feel like we're not as qualified or as good as somebody who uses oils. And I find that really mildly insulting. Your group, the group of therapists that we worked with, never ever made me feel that way. I didn't feel like my therapy was inferior to someone else's.
No, and it's not. It's not.
I know. Thank you. I felt incredibly validated so often.
Yeah.
And it was just wonderful to be able to be respected by other people saying, hey, look, you know what you're doing and you're getting the results. So it works and you're doing a good job. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I really hope that all the therapists in the courses are feeling valued. We don't bring people on if we don't think that they're up to being part of our type of teaching. Yeah. And I like the case studies, like the way that you got us working with individuals, but to do it in a very it was a very intricate way of getting the information from the client, and it was also very detailed. So at no time was it a guess. You knew what you were doing because you had all of the information in front of you. And I found that incredibly useful, because I do like a scientific approach to therapy,
And, you know, I value the fact that that information can then be used to help others, you know, and that's where I suppose studies come into it down the track. So, and, you know, I can see that there hopefully will be a time when you can do some really good scientific research into what you're doing, because it obviously has a really beneficial effect on the fascia.
Yeah, I agree. So you mentioned the case studies, so I'm going to come back into this. So
Yes.
it's basically a 7-week program with an 8-week kind of wrap up at the end. And in week, what was it, 7 and some of 8, everybody produces a case study from the work they've done up until that point. When I first mentioned case study, what did you think when it's like...
I've done case studies before, so for me it wasn't terrifying, but I could see the fear in the eyes of some of the therapists. It was like, what do you want us to do? An assignment? Because that's basically what it is. But because it was something that, you know, we're going to do in our clinics anyway, it didn't feel like extra work. And when I asked people if they would be open to being a case study recipient, they were so keen. Like everyone that I asked, and I had like 4 different people that I could have used as case studies, and they were so keen to come back and have a follow-up, and they paid for it. You know, like it wasn't just this is for free. They valued my time and they paid for that time, but they were really happy to use their, you know, the photographs that I took of their scars, and they were quite okay with me using them with the case studies, and also to be able to use them afterwards for advertising purposes. So, you know, I liked the way you incorporated, okay, how can we now use this in our businesses? So it wasn't just all about scar therapy. It was also how do we now incorporate it into what we do as therapists to be able to give the best service to our clients.
Yeah, that's great. That's perfect. Thank you so much. For you, Jane, it sounds like there was lots of good things that you enjoyed. Was there anything that was a challenge that you were like,
I think with the interview with the case study initially talking about scars, because normally when I sit down with my clients, you know, I do ask them questions and I ask them about what they're feeling, you know, and it's normally to do with movement. So it's not a lot to do with the emotional aspect of, you know, having a sore knee. Like they may talk about the fact that they're feeling a bit sort of, you know, restricted and it's frustrating and those sorts of things. But scars bring up a completely different emotion in clients. And I wasn't quite prepared for that, because I had one client who was very emotional while talking about their scars. And yet at the end of doing 2 treatments, their opinion of their scar had changed. They could touch their scar for the first time in 3 years. They didn't look at the scar as being ugly and horrible and damaged. They could see it as being a very positive experience, and that they actually viewed their scar in a much more gentle manner and were accepting of the fact that this was a part of them. And that's what I got from, you know, certain learning from you, basically, because that's what you taught us how to approach. And during the interviews with the clients, that was probably my biggest challenge, is to allow them to be emotional to the extent that they were.
So amazing. Well done. Well done. And I think for clarification, we're not doing counseling or psychology. We're just asking someone how they feel.
This is body therapy. Is it?
Yeah.
But we know as therapists that people are very emotional, and that when they feel better, they're going to be emotional. And being able to help people when they go through a bit of a traumatic response, they might be reliving the experience, explaining that, no, let's stay in the now, let's not go back there, we've got this new change. They were really good skills to have, to be able to guide my clients through that hiccup, I suppose. And if they needed help, I could suggest, go talk to your therapist. Your psychologist will be able to deal with that. I'll look after all of the fascia for you. So yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and all new research coming through is showing that fascia is actually an emotional organ in our body too. Like, that's
absolutely.
Yeah, like
I think that's brilliant, and it makes sense. And that's the reason why I think people continue to use body therapy, because one, it is influencing the fascia, but it also influences that emotional feeling of being cared for.
Yes.
And as therapists, that's our goal, is to care for our clients. I think medicine has become very hands-off, and it can be very clinical and cold. And there are times where you wonder, well, why do these people keep coming back to see me? Are they so broken I can't fix them? But I actually don't think that's it. I think it's because they feel cared for, and someone's actually prepared to touch them.
Yeah.
And that's a really gentle and kind way of guiding someone through healing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a listening touch, is really
very much so. And I do love that saying, because people will ask when I'm doing the transverse plane move, they'll go, what are you doing? And I'll go, I'm listening to your body. And they kind of look at you like you're nuts. But I explain to them that we communicate in so many different ways, that our body will communicate what it needs through touch. And that what I'm doing is so gentle that I'll feel and hear where you need me to be. So it's not woohoo, it is very technical, and it's just using one extra form of communication to be able to find exactly where the body is hurting. So, and I like it. It's been such a lovely move to be able to use on my clients, and it's very gentle and kind, and they feel very safe when you hold them in that transverse plane.
so true. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for sharing. And it sounds
That's okay.
It sounds to me like you learned a practical skill that you're now applying, that's getting you amazing results. Well done. Online.
Yes, I know.
I know.
And to think that I didn't actually have to touch someone to be able to do that. Like in courses that I've been to, it's always been very hands-on with a partner. But this is still really explicit and gives exactly what you need as a therapist to understand what to do when you have a client that you're working on their scar. And I think sometimes we forget that we can use other tools in order to enhance our learning, and our practical skill can be, really enhanced and made better without actually having a person right there and doing it on their body. So, yeah. I found that I still knew what I was doing when I had my client. So that was great. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, so good. How differently do you think about scars now? Even though you were very interested before, has that interest changed? Or or what?
I think understanding the complexity of adhesions. I think that's what's really, I've learned a lot of good information in regards to, I always assumed, yes, scar tissue was formed once you had an incision. So I knew that, but wasn't really understanding that adhesions was the body's response to, I suppose, dealing with this constant inflammation, and that it was constantly producing new collagen and new tissue in the fascia to heal. And so understanding that when you're actually doing scar therapy, especially on a new scar, it calms that process down, so it slows it. So it's not continuing to create more and more adhesions. I think that's what I found really fascinating, is that, you have a capacity to help young scars as well as a capacity to help old scars.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Well, the last question is, would you recommend this course to other therapists?
Oh, absolutely. I would highly, highly recommend this course. And I have already. So there are other Emmett therapists who I have been espousing the wonders of Christine Knox. And I know my friend Leah has already done a course with you. And I've got a whole lot of other therapists that, Emmett therapists who are really keen to do it as well. Gemma is another one, Gemma Dustin. And I know that her therapists that work for her at Gemstones, they also have done the course. So it's amazing the number of people that would benefit from doing this course. And I think it would really help those people who have done very physical therapy before to understand the finesse in being gentle and the benefit to the client for being gentle. And I think that's what I've loved most about recommending it to people, because it's not, let's break down the scar. It's like, no, let's work with the tissue around the scar. The scar will always be the scar, but we can influence all of that tissue around the scar to behave differently so that people have movement and less pain and restriction. So yes, I highly, highly, highly recommend this course.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say that I haven't touched on, or anything like that, Jane? Anything that's important for you to...
Oh, Christine, you've just opened a Pandora's box now. I need to go and learn more about scars and, look at different ways of being able to actually assist those clients who I thought, yeah, they've got a bad back, or yeah, their leg is sore. Like the other day, I had a guy come in with a very sore lower back, but I noticed he had this massive scar on his calf. And I asked him, what's that from? And he said, I got gored by a bull when I was 15. He used to do bull riding. And I thought, oh, what's the bad? That's affecting your hamstring, which is affecting how the glutes are working, which is affecting your lower back. So he was really sweet. He let me do some scar work on it. When he got up off the table, his back felt better, but he said, my calves have never felt so good. So, I look at things very differently now, Christine.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good thing. That's a positive thing.
That's so cool. And fun too, because it's kind of like, suddenly we're like, well, exploring and going on an adventure with our clients. Oh, I wonder if,
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a client who came to see me with a belly button scar. So she'd had a belly button ring, and she'd taken it out during her pregnancy. And obviously during her pregnancy, all the skin had stretched, but it was still like quite, the scar tissue around it was still quite hard, and you could feel it. And just doing one treatment on her helped to relax all of that area around the belly button. And she said that, she found that her posture changed.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, the fact that she could now sit up without having to force herself to sit up. So, just by working on a belly button scar piercing. So,
No,
yeah.
amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing. And like you said, Pandora's box now open.
Oh, totally. It's a good Pandora's box. So I'm liking it. It's awesome. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for everything. It's so good.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for being able to provide this for therapists, because honestly, it has been such an amazing course and I really appreciate it.